I'm Michelle from Michelle's Romantic Tangle, and I'm here with another Flosstube video. One of the things I saw on one of Bendy Stitcher Michelle Garrett's latest videos was the comment, you can stitch something on that, and I don't know if this is quite what she had in mind, but years and years ago I found myself a white linen skirt at a thrift shop. It was ankle length, that had the kind of broomstick skirt tiers, and it was never flattering, but I liked that skirt. I wore that skirt a lot. And then one day I got the idea that, hey, that's linen. I'm looking at all these embroidery patterns that use linen, and the skirt had started to show wear and had a couple of holes in it, and I decided, hey, I can cut that up. I can put some fusible interfacing on the back, and I can do some embroidery. So I started sewing the Anatomy Designs design pack from Urban Threads, the hand stitch version. I've got all of them done except for the rib cage. That's about when I ran out of steam. And I went to grab them to take pictures for this photo, but they're not where they should have been. But yay YouTube, it'll let me insert pictures. The plan is I've kind of sketched out a layout, and I want to put them together in a wall quilt that's really simple and kind of reminiscent of the old medical charts in a doctor's office. And I'm feeling like I want to pull this one out again. The other thing I'm working on, I still haven't started a second cross stitch project. I'm probably going to soon, maybe tonight, because I found a pattern that I really like for the EAP Macabre stitch along. But there aren't grid lines on the pattern, and it might be beyond my counting ability. I'm not sure. So I'm still working on A Little Girl's Fancy, which I love. I keep saying that I'm plodding on this piece, but it's not plodding. I'm enjoying myself most of the way. And this chart has got so many fun little elements. It's almost like a bunch of little projects. I stitch myself a tea set, and I stitch myself some roses. And this week I've been working on the back stitching on the chair and the doll's dresses, and I finally started the other doll's dress. So plodding isn't the word. I don't know what the word is, but not plodding. Meandering might be good. And the other big project I'm doing, which I mentioned in my last video, I've gone through all of my works in progress and my stash, and I have been bobbinating. I'm probably more than 3/4 of the way through towards my goal of building a master stash of DMC. Right now I've got, of what I've wound so far, I'm missing, I think, 30 colors, but if I go through all of my kit up projects and the UFOs, I'm going to find more of those, so that's not a problem. One video I found while I've been watching Flosstube since my last video, I'm afraid I'm going to butcher her last name, but Tamara Chikansky has a fantastic video about floss organization. She does the boxes like I and everyone else are doing, but she also has some great ideas for how to store all of the duplicate skeins. So last time I showed you shawl number 3 of what I hope will be 12 shawls this year. I'm working hard on shawl number 4. I'm probably close to halfway done. It's a feather and fan, and I'm using one of those Karen big cakes, which I like these. These are gorgeous, but they're gorgeous on a shelf. I'm challenging myself figuring out what I can use one skein for that I actually want to have in my life. So that's been interesting. Another shout out, I've been watching Whistle Stop Stitcher. She films most of her videos in her 160-year-old farmhouse where she holds quilting retreats, and oh my gosh, her stitching is gorgeous, and at the end of each video she's given a tour of rooms of the farmhouse and the quilts and all the stitchy decor. If you haven't seen her already, you really should go check her out. And now that I've gotten through the stitchy goodness, I'm going to hop up on my soapbox for a few minutes. I hope that you can learn from my mistakes. I really hope you don't have opportunity to learn from my mistakes. But wow, I wish I had had someone else's experience to draw from. March is National Blood Clot Awareness Month, along with all the other things March is. And there are a lot of things that you don't want to have go wrong in your life. Deep vein thrombosis, you don't want it. Just, especially since it can be prevented in a lot of cases. And I think it could have been prevented in my case, which I'm very angry about my blood clots. I'm going to give you the super condensed version. If you want more information about it, I've kind of lived through it all on my blog over the years, and I'm happy to chat about it with anyone who wants more information. Back in 2003, I was stopped at a red light with a whole bunch of other cars, and the one guy who was exceeding the speed limit and playing with his radio, and it was a nasty fender bender. My foot was on the brake, and the 3 orthopedists I have talked to over the years have used the term impact fracture and bone bruise, and we don't know why it still hurts so much. And it never healed right. I did physical therapy for a solid year, 4 days a week, dragging 3 children with me. It was doing better until, I believe, 2010, when I was stopped at another red light with a bunch of other cars and the woman who was speeding, and blamed the accident on her little girl in the back seat. I don't feel kindly towards her. Another bone bruise or impact fracture, or I don't know why my knee will not stop hurting. It was bad. Saw a 3rd orthopedist, and this one, after months and months of more physical therapy, more waiting to heal, more ice, more this, more that, he said he could do surgery and my knee wouldn't hurt anymore. I'd be off my feet for I think he said 2 weeks. The only risks I had to worry about were the anesthesia or infection, and those were negligible risks. And after my experience, my husband talked to everyone he knew who had had knee surgery. Everyone he knew who had had knee surgery had been warned about blood clots, had been put on medication to prevent blood clots. My doctors didn't say those were a possibility. I've got a history of blood clots in my family. We almost lost my grandfather to blood clots in his lungs. So, if I had known they were a risk, if there's anything in my life that I could go back and do differently, I would not have had this surgery. So, surgery was Friday afternoon. By about 2 a.m. Saturday morning, the pain was excruciating. It felt like my leg was in a vice that would not let up. This is with the full dose of oxy, whatever, that they had me on. I didn't know what I was supposed to be watching for. I didn't know what the risks were. So I waited till Monday morning to call the doctor's office instead of going to the emergency room. My surgeon's office made me wait till Tuesday afternoon for an appointment. And after the appointment, he told me he didn't know what it was. It wasn't blood clots, but he was going to send me to have an ultrasound just in case. Had the ultrasound, where they found all the clots, including the one that had broken up loose and migrated above my knee. Doctor was gone for the day. No reaching him. They sent me over to a different wing of the hospital to get shots. And I don't know if it's just the era I grew up in, but do you remember getting told that if you were bitten by a rabid animal, you would have to have all those shots in your stomach and how bad they would hurt? If you get blood clots, you have to have shots in your stomach every day, and oh, they hurt. They also cost $500 a pop. I want to be very clear that when I complain about the expense of these blood clots, it's not what insurance would pay or what we paid. It's nobody should have had to pay for this. this shouldn't have happened. If it had to happen, it shouldn't have gone an extra 4 days to get treated. It's just a bad situation. So as I'm getting my first shot, my doctor, who was gone for the day, suddenly materialized and was patting me on the shoulder, telling me not to worry. If your doctor, who is gone for the day and unreachable, is suddenly there patting on your shoulder, that's not a good sign. Not in my head, at least. So the pain did not ease. I went back to our general practitioner. He upped the pain meds, which I don't know what happened there, but 24 hours of stronger pain meds, and the pain was down to where I didn't need the meds anymore. They put me on warfarin for 6 months. If you're not familiar with what warfarin is, it's the exact same stuff you buy to put in the barn to kill the rats. Warfarin terrifies me. The other thing about warfarin is that the prescription, mine was that 2 pills on Monday, 3 pills on Tuesday, 2 pills on Wednesday, 1 pill on Thursday. But if you eat too much spinach, then it'll change your blood levels. And the list of foods that you have to be careful of while you're on warfarin is long and confusing, and as careful as I was, I kept getting into trouble with it. You also can't eat cranberries, which around Christmas time is miserable. I stood there one year it was Christmas Eve, my kids were eating spinach quiche, and I was fighting back the tears because my kids could have spinach quiche, and I'd already had spinach the day before, so I couldn't have any more that week. It's miserable stuff. You're cold all the time. I lost about half my hair when I was on it. I asked the doctor about it, and his answer was, well, it's rat poison after all. Could have done that. So while we were dealing with all of this, my husband was online doing research and found a website called stoptheclot.org, where they have a whole long list of things to ask your doctor. I went into my doctor for my 6-month follow-up with the warfarin, asked him the questions, asked what do I need to do to keep this from happening again, because they were going to take me off the warfarin, what signs do I need to watch for, what can I do? He told me that my clots were caused by my surgery, that it would never ever happen again, and there was nothing to worry about. So I got on with my life. 2015, I drove my daughter from our place up to Portland. It's a 2-hour drive. I stopped at Salem to visit my mom, had run up and down her stairs a few times, and then drove the other hour up to Beaverton and back close to home, got out of the car, put weight on my leg, and that terrified part of my brain went, you have a blood clot. This hurts. I didn't want to go to the emergency room. I thought maybe I was wrong. I thought how expensive that was going to be to get the imaging, and I decided I'd wait and see. And one of the symptoms that I had been told to watch for was like a Charlie horse that does not ease up. So when the pain eased up, I thought I was in the clear. I walked around with blood clots in my leg for a solid month. There were days when it really hurt. There were days when it didn't hurt at all. A month later, I was tired of hurting, and I had convinced myself that I had a pulled muscle. Blood clots were the last thing from my mind by that point. Went into urgent care, the walk-in clinic, talked to the receptionist there who almost turned me away. She told me if I'd been having pain for a month, I should have waited for a regular doctor's appointment, but by that point, I was done. I wanted help. Talked to a doctor who was not my regular GP, and my blood clots didn't do what blood clots are supposed to do. The typical symptoms are you swell, you get redness, you get heat in the affected limb. All I had was pain. So he measured my leg, he measured my other leg. There was no swelling. But just to be safe, he was going to do a blood test. If I had known there was a blood test that would tell if you have blood clots, I would have been at the hospital on day one. But no one ever told me. No one ever told me what to watch for. So they took blood, they sent me home. About 10 p.m. that night, the phone rings, and it's the doctor himself telling me to go to the emergency room now. Go to the emergency room where they have woken up the ultrasound technician, dragged her down to do the ultrasound on my leg. Guess what? I've got blood clots again. So they gave me a shot, sent me home, told me to go to my doctor, get in to see my doctor in the morning. If I could not get into the doctor in the morning to learn how to do shots myself at home, because this time I didn't have to do them at the hospital, I had to go back to the emergency room. You don't want to go to the hospital every day for shots in the stomach. You also don't want to do shots in the stomach every day at home, because in a lot of ways it's easier, and in some ways it's not. They're a lot cheaper, which is good. By the end of, I can't remember how many days it was, twice a day, I was running out of fresh places to stick the needle, and the needle was getting stuck in my abdomen. You don't want blood clots. So we asked the doctor, you know, this is hereditary. We know we've got family members with it. Do I have to worry about my kids? What my doctor told me was that there are tests they can do to determine whether it's genetic. But they can't do the tests while you are on blood thinners. And if I went off the blood thinners long enough to take the test, I might not live long enough to see the test results. That is what he told me. That is not my interpretation of what he told me. My husband was sitting there and has confirmed this. He told me I'd die if I didn't have those blood thinners. I was terrified. And I know that there are lots of people for lots of different reasons, depending on life-saving medications. But to find myself without warning in that position, just because I had knee surgery, just because I got rear-ended at a red light, I had a very, very hard time dealing with that. So now I'm on blood thinners for the rest of my life. Every medical decision from here on out hinges on those blood thinners. If I go to the dentist, it hinges on the blood thinners. I can't take ibuprofen anymore. I have suffered from migraines forever. I used to take ibuprofen, and with the knee injury, I took ibuprofen every single day. If you think of all of the things in life that happen that you might need anti-inflammatories, nope, I can't have them. And I'm whiny and I'm cranky and it feels like I'm being punished. But it's taken me 3 years. I'm starting to get used to the idea and not as upset about that one, but the repercussions of the deep vein thrombosis and having to be on these blood thinners for the rest of my life are far-reaching, and you don't want to deal with this. So we asked the doctor, about the general practitioner, if I needed to see a specialist. Nope, just need to take the warfarin forever. Asked him at the advice of the coagulation clinic technicians about switching from warfarin to Xarelto or one of the other medications, because they don't depend on your diet. And the way the warfarin works is every 6 weeks or so you go in and get a blood test. If your INR, which I don't know what that stands for, is either high or low, they adjust your dosage. And then you come back in 6 weeks. Well, you can eat too much spinach 3 days after your last test, and you can be taking the old dosage and completely unprotected for another 5 weeks until you figure it out. Bonus, if you get it far enough out of whack, you get to do the self-injections and Lovamax again. Stressful is not the word. And these tests at the hospital system that I was going to also cost $150 a month, which insurance doesn't cover until you hit your deductible. For my hospital, my deductible. I asked the doctor about one of the other medications, and he said, no, those are too expensive. So I went on for I don't know how long, taking the warfarin, watching what I ate, not eating cranberries, being a nervous wreck, being cold all the time. We went down to Utah, and we're at our favorite hamburger place. It is 85 degrees out, and I am sitting in the sun wearing a sweater. And I'm not warm. It messes with your system like you would not believe. So somewhere along the line, I went to see my new gynecologist, and he's looking at my medical history and questions why I have been on warfarin for so long and when I'll be getting off of it. He kind of hit the ceiling when I told him what my general practitioner had told me. Told me I needed to see a hematologist, gave me the name of a hematologist, and I went and saw her right away. I really don't like my surgeon. I really don't like that general practitioner. I don't think either of them is practicing medicine anymore at this point. My hematologist, guys, is amazing. I hope you don't need a hematologist, but if you need one and you're in Oregon, Farouk Abar, she is amazing. Her office staff is amazing, and I can't say enough good things about her. I went in for my first appointment and saw her, and I don't know how long she was in the office with me as I sobbed because I just couldn't do it anymore. And you know what, guys? There are tests that they can do while you are on the medication that you can figure out. Not all of the genetic stuff, but enough to give my kids some information to work with. We did the tests. I switched from warfarin to Xarelto, which, yes, that's the one with all the scary TV commercials, and if you ever try to research blood clots, all you get are horror stories about the dangerous drugs. They're dangerous. I know they're dangerous, but they also help keep me alive at this point, so yay. My insurance plan that doesn't pay the $150 every 6 weeks for the monitoring, it pays for the Xarelto. I pay $10 a month, and there's a coupon that pays for the rest of that. So my doctor was making decisions based on cost information that didn't even apply in my situation. I think, well, I'm safer on the Xarelto because it's not so strongly, it's not at all influenced on my diet. The only thing I can't eat these days is grapefruit, which I don't like grapefruit. I never liked grapefruit. Hear that you can never eat grapefruit again in your life, and you'll start craving grapefruit. My darling children also have decided that grapefruit is awesome, I think, because it's fun to torture me, and, you know, if my teenagers want to eat fruit, I'll buy it for them. I'm not going to argue. So it has been better since I got the hematologist. I get much better information. If I call her office, there is a specific staff member. There are specific staff members assigned, I guess, to specific patients. So if I call with a question, the nurse I talk to is going to know the answer, and she's going to confirm it with the doctor, which is awesome. Back when I was on the second round of warfarin, I was going into the coagulation clinic, and the gal who worked in there was like, oh, you've been on this 6 months, we'll be taking you off of it soon. Which wasn't true, and I don't think it's a good idea for medical staff to be giving information like that to a patient who desperately, desperately wants to be off of that medication. I've been told by, I think, 3 different nurses that either I could stop taking the pill a couple of days a month to alleviate some symptoms, or that I would be off it entirely soon, and it wasn't true. But I desperately wanted it to be true, so I could have easily made some bad decisions based on that. So guys, that's my soapbox on blood clots. If you are having surgery, if you are doing something where blood clots might be a risk, please, please, please find out about them and what you need to watch for and what you can do to avoid them. One of the worst things about my experience was when I went in to see my doctor on that Tuesday afternoon, he blamed me. He told me that it was my fault because I hadn't been getting up and walking around enough. I'd been watching the clock. I had been following his instructions to the letter. My blood clots were because of damage to my leg and because of the family history. It wasn't because I didn't follow the doctor's directions after surgery. That information, by the way, comes from the hematologist, and I just happily accept everything she tells me pretty much. The other awesome thing that my hematologist told me, I could go off blood thinners tomorrow if I really wanted to and start taking aspirin instead. If I choose to do that, I will get another clot. It most likely will not kill me, but the odds are strong that it'll leave me with further damage to my leg and possible lasting swelling and discoloration and a whole huge bunch of nasty stuff that I don't want to risk. But that's way different from being dead if I stop taking it. So I adore my hematologist. If you have medical stuff going on that is complicated, please, please, please get a second opinion. My husband was in a severe accident about 4 years ago. Went to his doctor, got tests, got a prescription for pain medication, got told to stay off his leg for a while, and after a month his doctor told him, well, you're fine, you shouldn't need pain medication anymore. Went to a different doctor, and my husband had been walking around the entire time with 3 severed tendons and a bone fragment in the back of his ankle. So if something is complicated or something is wrong, get a second opinion. It is, some of this stuff can be life-changing. These blood clots and the mess with my husband's ankle they're forever things. Take care of yourselves, please. Like I said, I tried to keep this short, but I get really ranty when it comes to the blood clots, and no one had ever told me. I knew there was a family history. I knew they were scary and dangerous. I didn't know that knee surgery was the situation where you get blood clots. Like I said, I tried to keep this short. If you are curious and for some reason want to know more about it, a lot of it's on the blog, or I will answer questions if I can be of any help to anybody, and I will link to stoptheclot.org in the description of this post because they have some fantastic information there. Thanks for watching. I will be back soon, and I promise the next video will have lots more stitchy stuff in it.